Right, the Department of International Relations and Cooperation made a démarche to the Israeli ambassador to South Africa, Eliav Belotserkovsky, to examine his recent remarks in relation to the unfolding conflict between Israel and Hamas. The South African Jewish Board of Deputies says the decision by the government shows that it's siding with Hamas and is an outright bullying tactic. Joining me now to weigh in on this development is conflict resolution expert Dr. Kingsley Makhubela. A very good morning to you. Thank you so much for your time and welcome to Newzroom Afrika. Cabinet has essentially rebuked the public statements Ambassador Eliav Belotserkovsky has made about South Africa's support for Palestinians. What do you make of DIRCO's retaliation?
A démarche, actually, it's for the purpose of viewers. It's a process where the receiving state can register some protests or can make ultimatum and so on. You would recall when the cabinet made a statement, there were different views, and there were strong views from the civil society and some quarters in the ANC that the Israeli ambassador must be expelled. But now it turned out it's not an expulsion. It was to record the complaint of the South African government with respect to the development in the Middle East. So they have recorded that from what you've seen in the public space. But the Israelis have the right to institute a process that is called démarche. Démarche is essentially the official denial of whatever the allegations are made by South Africa. And they can do that before the departure of the staff in Tel Aviv so that they can use whatever language they want to record or respond to the démarche. I would assume, Paul, that given the fact that it appears there are complaints about the behavior of the ambassador, the DIRCO in this instance has put it on record in writing to explain what they find as incompatible with his diplomatic status and his function as an envoy in the country, so that there's no misunderstanding about what is the complaint about.
Yeah. So DIRCO, having confirmed that it's met with the Israeli ambassador to convey its unhappiness with his conduct, of course taking on a very dim view of the way that he's been conducting himself, what role should Ambassador Belotserkovsky be playing in conveying government's concerns to Tel Aviv?
That's why I'm saying, Paul, the most important thing I hope DIRCO has done is to put that on record so that there's no misinterpretation about the report that the ambassador would certainly make to Tel Aviv with respect to his own behavior, because if they put it on record, the ambassador would communicate that, of course, he would have his own views and interpretation and explanation about the démarche that DIRCO has given. You can give a démarche in two ways. It's allowed. You can do a verbal one. You can do a written one. It's always better to put it on record, to do a written one, so that there's no misinterpretation. And of course, as I said, Tel Aviv has the right to respond, and in what it's called démarche, they can rebuff whatever DIRCO is saying.
Mm-hmm. With the ambassador having been reminded to conduct himself in line with the Vienna Conventions that accords heads of diplomatic missions certain privileges, what sort of conduct and privileges are contained within the Vienna Conventions?
The Vienna Convention stipulates clearly that somebody like an ambassador has full diplomatic immunities and privileges. Privileges, they all depend on the receiving state, but the immunities are enshrined in the Vienna Convention, and we have domesticated Vienna Convention into our laws, meaning that the ambassador can be arrested, he can be harassed. One of the things that I think DIRCO and the South African government should do moving forward, now that they have made this démarche, they must treat the ambassador with utmost respect, because part of the Vienna Convention requires the receiving state to treat the foreign diplomats with utmost respect and really not to impugn their reputation in the public space. So the South African government actually has the responsibility now to really protect the credibility of the ambassador.
Mm-hmm. And going back to the leading developing international story, just taking stock of what's happening there, we know that some disturbing visuals have been seen as explosions reported near several children's hospitals in Gaza and, of course, operating near a children's facility. We also know that Israel agreed to a 4-hour daily pause in Gaza, of course, fighting to allow civilians to flee. Is the small window of ceasefire, would you say that it's enough for the safe movement of people?
There has been a discussion that involved David Barnea, who is the head of Mossad, and William Burns, the head of the CIA, with the Qataris, who really were negotiating this window of opportunity to allow the civilians to move from northern Gaza to southern Gaza into Israel in the Sinai Desert. Mm. And we are seeing the announcement by the government that they would provide this window of opportunity for people to move. It appears that the Qataris have succeeded in terms of securing this window of opportunity, which the Israeli government says it's not a ceasefire. It's essentially to allow civilians to move out. But the behavior of Israel is really swinging the pendulum against them, because if you look at the public opinion in major Western countries like Washington, Germany, France, and so on, it's really changing because of the atrocities that people are seeing, children that are really being killed and so on by indiscriminate bombardment of Israel. So it's turning the public opinion, and I think very soon, a lot of government will start to take a strong position against Israel. The Norwegians have done the same thing. The French have started to say, let there be ceasefire. They can't keep on tolerating this indiscriminate killing of children. So the pendulum is definitely swinging against the Israelis. And the Israelis better understand that they need to change their attitude before they lose the total support around the world.
And what would that mean for the way Israel is heeding caution by its biggest allies?
Well, it would mean this issue would play itself in the forthcoming election in the United States. It would play itself in the forthcoming election in the United Kingdom, because these countries are the biggest supporters of Israel. And if you look at millions of people who have turned up on the streets ready to denounce this indiscriminate killing of Israel, and particularly killing of children, bombardment of hospitals and schools, it's really creating a public nightmare against the Israelis. I've seen also a former President Trump has also started to say Israel is facing a public relation nightmare. So the pendulum is definitely swinging against Israel. And I think the Israelis are quite aware of this. You'd probably see some changes. Later today, there's an announcement or there's an address by Hassan Nasrallah, the head of Hezbollah. They regard this as the Martyr Day. So we'll be all observing that to see if there are any announcement to formally enter into the conflict. But meanwhile, the conflict has spread to other areas. As you know, there's bombardment that is getting into the Israeli side. Even the Hezbollah have started to hit some areas in Israel. So the conflict is getting out of control.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for that analysis by conflict resolution expert Dr. Kingsley Makhubela. They're just giving us the latest and, of course, some reaction on a developing international story which we continue to keep a good eye on.